Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Compelling Conversations podcast. Today, I'm joined by Matthew. Matthew, thanks so much for being here, man.
Hello, good to be here. Thank you so much, Omar.
Yeah, dude, this is gonna be fun, man. I feel that. In my mind, I was thinking about talking about films, and I guess what I wanted to begin by asking you was, of course, there's many films that have an impact on a person, but is there one film in particular that you feel like has made you more than the others?
Yeah, honestly, I guess off the cuff, definitely I would say The Matrix is a
Oh,
big one.
man. Why is that?
Yeah. The way it sort of combines philosophy and sort of these deeper themes with very over the top action and how the entire film is structured, um, and how it has this very unique tone where even like at the beginning when it's showing just the normal everyday life of the main character, Thomas Anderson, later Neo, you just get the feeling that something is off the entire time, like something very bad is going to happen. And it's a tone that kind of lingers throughout the movie, even when like when you later find out what's going on. And then also just like the framing, the cinematography of all of the shots, how they're all based off of anime and comic books and storyboards. So you have these very specific and unique ways that all of the characters are blocked and everything is positioned within the frame. It definitely feels like every single like little thing of that movie has been planned out to kind of give this atmosphere and this world a lot more life. And I think it's really cool. And especially with the again the comic and anime influence, you get a lot of things you usually don't see in live action movies in their films, which some would say is not great, but I personally really love it, and I think it definitely allows it to be a lot more unique, visually speaking and looking. And then also just like I think the dialogue and the way they do exposition in that movie is really good, and I would say it has a big influence in me of like wanting to make movies that have, in a way, both high arts and low arts in them. So you can have these, deeper conversations about, what it means to, be human, what it means to really be in control, who's really in control of who, what does it mean to, be aware of your surroundings and all that stuff. And then also, have people backflip off of walls and, having giant shootouts and stuff and having a set to techno music. So yeah, definitely I would say that's been a big influence on me.
When I was 17, like Tom Cruise, I would watch a movie every single day. I remember I came home from school one time and I put on The Matrix. When I was watching the film, by the end of it, I was like, I have no idea what happened. And I just didn't like it. I thought it was weird? So time passed, and it wasn't until last year that I watched it again. And it's because Andrew Tate kept talking about The Matrix, and it had an effect on the culture, like Matrix, Matrix, Matrix. I kept hearing that everywhere I went. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I watched the film and I was like, wow, this is really something. And you're right, like that. There's a philosophical element there that it just really resonates. And I remember just being really infatuated with that film for about like 2 or 3 months after watching it. In that universe, there was something really relevant to that in our time now that I could see. And yeah, man, one of the elements that really caught my eye is there's this scene where Neo dies in the Matrix, but and so his real body is also dead. But then Trinity kisses him, and when she kisses him, he comes back to life. And I just thought it was interesting that her name was Trinity too. It's like, wow, this spirit overwhelmed him, and now he's back to life, and he saves the day. That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
definitely one of those worlds that, yeah, I think about that one too. The Matrix is pretty profound.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I definitely think Andrew Tate may have misinterpreted a lot of the Matrix, in my opinion, but I think and the whole red pill movement, which the creators have talked about, like that kind of just went off the rails. And then I think they even like make fun of it a little bit in the newer movie, which a lot of people really don't like, but I actually really like it a lot, just for what they
I
were
haven't
trying to
seen
do with
that
it.
one. Yeah.
It is very different. I'm just gonna say that without getting into spoilers. But one thing I really love about that scene too is because a lot of people will criticize the Neo coming back to life as like dumb Deus Ex Machina or whatever. But in my opinion, like because a big thing with the theme of like all of the movies is sort of about kind of like how love can conquer all. And I feel like when Trinity kisses Neo, that is not only him, basically in a way, love kind of brings him back to life, but also that is a way for him to realize that his body is not real within the Matrix because they make it a big point to say, your mind makes it real. You die in the Matrix, you die for real, but having sort of that real world element, uh, he realizes that he is no longer like controlled by the Matrix, like physically or spiritually. So I think that's a very powerful sentiment, especially when you kind of take that into real life and you realize that, like, whether it be religion, whether it be love, whether it be anything, like you have it within yourself to kind of like break free of kind of whatever is surrounding you and stuff, whether it be, capitalistic society, just social standards that are kind of oppressing you in general. I think it's a powerful message. And it is interesting because like I have heard some people say that that message may be like a little bit too individualistic in the sense of like anybody can kind of like I think Logan Paul has used it at some point to say I'm breaking free from the Matrix, guys. So like everyone kind of has like their own like I'm a victim complex kind of thing, but I still think that the movie it does it in a way to where it really feels original. And yeah, I don't know. I really like what you were kind of saying. Like the part where he gets resurrected is probably like my favorite part of the movie because then you also have that giant like swelling fight with that last kind of confrontation with him and Smith as he like officially like breaks free and then he just loses all sense of uh, not control, but people controlling him. So he starts like moving at like super speed and stuff while he's fighting him, and like the way the music swells. I love the score of that movie too. So I think that that is really, really. I think it's cool. I think it's really good.
Yeah. There was this one song in particular that I know the creators listened to a lot when they made it. I think it was Just One More Hit or something. One More Hit. I forget the
One
band.
more fix is by
One More
Ministry.
Fix. Ministry. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, when I
Mm-hmm.
hear that, I very much see the Matrix world. I think
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. I think another
Mm-hmm.
interest that I had in that film, I realized was there's a lot of culture that when we're kids, it's around us and we're aware of it, but it's like, oh, that's for like adults. You can't watch that yet, you know? And so we grow up and we kind of
Yes.
forget about it. But then when we grow up, we're like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. I always wanted to watch it. I was never like allowed to,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Or I just wasn't exposed to it like that. And I find that not just with The Matrix, but like a lot of other films too. Like, wow, I was a kid when this came out and I didn't get a chance to see it, but now I have an opportunity to explore it. And then you get to see it from this modern lens, and it's like, wow, it still holds up or it doesn't. It's interesting.
Yeah, I also feel like that way with like a lot of like Adult Swim was like a big thing that was like banned in our household. But when you're a kid, that just makes you want to watch it more. So it was interesting, kind of, because you would kind of sneak out a little bit, see some of it like here and there. But then, like when you're an adult, you get that feeling. Sometimes I get that feeling where like that like thought of being a kid comes out where you're just like, ooh, I'm not supposed to be watching this. Ooh, this isn't made for me. Oh man. So I think The Matrix definitely also has parts of that in it as
Yeah, it's
well. And
almost
then
like
just
a
a lot of films
nostalgic
from that.
element as well. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
like
for sure. I mean, especially it's super Y2K, like you were talking about with like the music, with all like the new metal and the techno and everything. And then
yeah,
just like the style is very much like movies don't really you don't see that as much, especially I mean, especially with that new metal style.
and
So
I think that's so interesting because I remember Matthew McConaughey, he talked about this one time where he's like, he's made films where he loved them. He's like, wow, this was amazing, this was epic. But when it came out, it didn't make a whole lot of noise. Not a whole lot of people went to go see it. No one really cared.
mhm.
But then he's like, some years down the line, they get like a little resurrection, and people start getting excited about those movies and they start watching them. And I thought about that and I was like, damn, he is so right. Think about all the movies ever made. It's like there's so many, we haven't seen them, but there's films that so many actors have made that I just haven't seen yet, but I know they're out there. And it could be like I'm watching it 20 years since it was made and it has an effect on me now, but they could never have predicted that 20 years ago. These sorts of things,
Yeah.
they inspire whoever they need to, whenever they need to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like I mean, the saying ahead of its time definitely is relevant in a lot of ways because you have these filmmakers who are ahead of the curve, either like stylistically or thematically. And they always talk about like right place at the right time, like the Beatles, like they were so many factors led to their like to just them like blowing up. Where if it happened like if the Beatles happened like a decade earlier, a decade later, they would just not be nearly as big or nearly as influential. And I definitely think the same is like with a lot of movies as well. And also something that I think is interesting. I think there was an H Bomber guy video about it where he talked about some movies just do better on home video because they just feel better on home video. Something like Dazed and Confused, like with Matthew McConaughey, that bombed when it came out in the theater. And that is definitely like you watch that on your TV while you're just like chilling out at home. You know what I mean? And not to, shit on the theater experience because I love the theater experience. I love going to the theater. But watching Dazed and Confused for the first time in a movie theater, I feel like would have a very different feel. And that laid back energy may not be the same watching it like on like the big screen than watching it like on your TV. So you have like a lot of these movies that do not so great in, the theater, but they do like super well, especially like a lot of comedy movies. Like Office Space did super well on home video. And then
Yeah.
also like I'm not a giant fan of it, but like the movie Grandma's Boy. There was an interview with Nick Swartzen where he did a stand-up special and the CEO of Netflix happened to be or the CEO of Blockbuster happened to be at that stand-up special. And this is in like 2017, 2018. So like Blockbuster is dead and done by this point. But the CEO of Blockbuster went up to him. He's like, Grandma's Boy was our most stolen film.
Wow.
Like people would rent it and then they would just not give it back.
Wow.
And so we lost so many copies of Grandma's Boy. And I definitely think like it's interesting with streaming because I mean back in the day, like direct to DVD was kind of considered like low effort, low quality, but now direct to streaming in a lot of ways still is, but that's not always the case because you'll have Martin Scorsese movie go directly to streaming. You'll have a like the new David Fincher movies are pretty much just on streaming now. So there is sort of this kind of higher um I don't want to say elegance, but people have like a little bit more expectations for some of them. And then you have stuff like, I don't know, the kissing booth or the billions of Netflix rom-coms that all have like the same thumbnail on it or any of like the Tubi original movies, which I love, but I mean, they're not great. They're not good. I love them in a very different way. But you will have movies like I don't know. The other day I watched I didn't finish it, but I started Spree, which is a movie I think that has like Joe Kearney from Stranger Things in it. And I don't even remember that movie coming out in the theater, but like that is like a movie that really became bigger on streaming platforms. A lot of comedies, like I think they were talking about the new, I think it's Bert Kreischer. He had a movie come out called The Machine this year. Didn't make any money in the theaters. As soon as it went on Netflix, it was like number one movie on Netflix.
Wow.
So some things just do better later, especially with comedies, I would say.
Yeah, that's a very good point. One thing about streaming that I noticed, like at least for myself, is I feel like there's definitely, advantages to it, but I also feel like I miss out on a lot of culture because of it. Like I remember I started Loki season two, and then I totally forgot about it because it's like, oh yeah, it's just streaming. But there's just so many
Mm-hmm.
things that get put out there, and you just kind of forget about them because it's just
Yeah,
all out there. It's all meshed together. Like okay,
oversaturation definitely is a problem with streaming, and the fact that again something like Netflix, just with like Disney, will pump out like millions of dollars into shows and then just not promote them basically, so they're just on the platform and like nobody knows they exist pretty much.
I like how you
Like
said that. Not promote them. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Promoting things because it really makes a big difference, man. It really makes a
mm-hmm.
big difference. And I was just talking to one of my aunts. We were discussing different prospects in life. And when she said something to me, what I realized was every person on earth is a business person. So, like, you have to, I don't want to say sell yourself, but like, you always have to know how to make a pitch. You always have to know how to navigate the world, and promoting, it's a big deal, very big deal. So, yeah, millions of dollars into films that just don't get promoted. It's a tragedy.
Yeah, that's why like sometimes movies will do horribly in America, but they'll do amazing in the foreign market because they know how to market to people in foreign markets better, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you can have an amazing movie, but if nobody sees it, which is another way, like we talk about like
Yeah.
movies that get,
Ooh.
they're get no buzz when they come out, and then years later people find them is because usually they have like a shit marketing department. Like The Iron Giant is one of my favorite movies ever that had like one trailer and then nobody saw it because there was like absolutely no marketing buzz around it. And then like I want to say they were giving out like free DVDs and like Honey Nut Cheerios boxes later, you know. So and then that later became a classic just because it was on like TV a lot and stuff, and that's how people found out about it. But yeah, I mean, you need like the good marketing department. And then sometimes it gets iffy because A24, um, their marketing department pretty much just lies. Like they lie to people about like what the movie is. Like not to
Have you
say like the
seen
movies
Beau is
are,
Afraid?
I have not. I really want to.
Oh
I
my
really, really want to
goodness.
see it.
That film, I watched it and what an experience. There's just so much
Mm-hmm.
happening. I didn't know what was going on, but if you get a chance to watch it, in particular, there's this one scene where he's watching a play. And that play, like I still think about that. What an eerie but symbolic play. It's just that's what I like about A24 in general.
Yeah,
They know art. They know art. They just know how to put art out there. It's really
for sure.
fascinating.
And that's something that I mean, I respect their business model because I mean they are very much like let's make a good movie first, and then like with Bo is Afraid, like you've seen it, but like I can only assume how crazy it is. How do you market a movie like that?
Yeah,
Like what
very
is the
good point.
audience for that movie? How do you get like a generic moviegoer to go see that? Is you kind of falsely advertise it like a little bit. Like I remember the movie It Comes at Night when that came out. That is a very slow movie. It mainly takes place in like one house, but then when the trailer came out, it was like jump scare, loud noises, loud noises. And the movie's nothing like that. So you had a lot of people go in and to be like, this was fucking bullshit. That was stupid. It was just boring. And then they leave because they got like they went in with the completely wrong mindset. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So
yeah.
and they do that a lot. Like I remember they did that with Recently, I saw Dream Scenario, actually, the one with Nicolas Cage, which I really loved. I really loved it a lot. Way darker than I was expecting, and especially based off the trailer, because the trailer it has it set to like Dreams by the Cranberries or whatever, which is like this really nice song, and there's like a hint of darkness towards the end, and then that's it. Movie goes way darker than that, but you have to get a general audience sort of enticed into that. So it's a very interesting business model. I saw recently they said they were gonna expand more to like action movies and like IPs, which I don't think was like 100% confirmed. That was just like theories, inkling, but like I don't know, like I trust that they would be able to do good by it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I also like that though, that there's some movies where you have to ask yourself, how do you market this? How do you promote this to generic movie-going audience? And sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not sure you can. It is just a weird thing, and whoever needs to see it sees it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
going back to the initial question, what that I asked you about, like what movie you think inspired you the most? Again, even for myself, right? There's been so many films that have had huge impacts, but I think the answer that comes to me is Troy. And that movie came out in 2004 when I was a
I
kid.
haven't seen it. I'm so sorry.
Great film, great film. But
Mm-hmm.
I when I was 17, I watched that film, like years after it released. And like none of those people that were part of that had any idea what effect that would have on me or what impact it would have on me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe a lot of people went in to go see it for the action or whatever. But it's like for me, it's like that was an important element, but there was deeper underlying messages and symbols. And so it's like every little thing, we just don't know how it's going to be interpreted out there. But it has an effect, whether that's small or huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember I haven't seen Troy actually. I've been meaning to check it out just because again it is one of those movies like I remember like being a big deal when I was a kid. But that does also remind me of like when Drive came out, the movie Drive. They were have you seen it by any
No, but
chance?
that's the Ryan Gosling one, though, right? Or
Ryan
that
Gosling one,
okay?
very artsy, slow, methodical movie. It gets very violent in a lot of parts.
Is it
And they
like
were,
Nightcrawler?
yeah, I would definitely say it's like
Wow,
Nightcrawler. Yeah,
wow,
with a lot less dialogue. But they were trying, I remember when they came out, they were trying to like market it as like a drag race movie, like kind of like Fast and the Furious-esque style
yeah.
movie, which is like the completely wrong way to market it. But it's like, well, I guess that's how you get people to go see it. Because I want to say it made money, but then like, and now it's like a cult classic. It is like one of the typical film bro movies. And but like you had a lot of people be like, that was fucking stupid. There was no racing, there was no drag race. So yeah, I just think it's fascinating how like again, like you'll have movies that come out, they don't really get their due, and then like years later, like even like American Psycho, like I feel that that movie's much more popular now with like meme culture and stuff than it
I like how
was.
you mentioned American Psycho because another really powerful element of films that I've realized in my life is they show me reality that real life, like I'm aware of it in real life, but I can't see it or I can't put it into words. In the film,
Mm-hmm.
it's demonstrated, it's displayed. And when you see it, you recognize, you're like, whoa, like I've seen that before. And this is possibly what it could be. It's a very
Yeah,
interesting, like, learning mechanism. Film is like a learning mechanism.
yeah, like especially for like different perspectives and like different like especially that's why I really love about like film is that you can have like so many different cultures kind of existing and then you can have so many films from different cultures like about the same topic, you know? And that's why I think that not to shit on like your Quentin Tarantino's and your Christopher Nolan's because they're great, but I also worry about people who, when they're like, oh, I need to get into film, they'll just watch like the basics, you know what I mean? Like, and they'll basically just like watch a bunch of crime dramas. And it's like, there's so much out there that like, you got to open your mind to and stuff. Like, there's great cinema that's like independent, made from like a bunch of poor people, you know what I mean? Or like, foreign films and stuff, There's just so many like different perspectives and different like and then also so many, just not even perspectives for how the story is told, but just like perspectives for filmmaking, where like there's so many like unique shots or editing choices, especially from like foreign films, because they're, you know, they're outside of like the traditional like Hollywood structure, where you're just like, oh shit, wow, that's like something crazy that I never would have thought to do before. Which is why like you'll have like a lot of filmmakers not steal it, but definitely are like, we're paying homage to like other films. Like Darren Aronofsky does that a lot. So yeah, it's definitely, yeah, like, and what you were talking about with like perspective, because like my thing with film, right? And this is just like any arts, like, you know, video game, book, TV show, whatever. There's like a difference between, and my friend Joseph talks about this all the time, where there's a difference between story and plot, right? Like plot is like what happens in the movie. Plot is character went from A to B and then C happened and then he went back to B and then now he's at D, basically. Storytelling is how exactly you're telling the story. Whose perspective are you seeing this from? What are like the motivations of the characters? Are you relating to the character or not? Are you not supposed to relate to a character? And I think that with like something like American Psycho, you
To
could
pause you
easily
real quick,
take, oh
I'm
yeah.
so sorry, but this was such an interesting thing. Are you not supposed to relate to some characters? Do you think that's a thing?
I think so. I feel like in a
Like this is going to be
way,
kind of contentious, right? Sorry, I'm jumping in
mhm,
again, but
yeah,
like recently I wrote a paper on the Joker, right? And that film
yeah,
is heavy. It's a heavy film.
mhm,
But I feel like there's plenty of people on earth that can watch that movie and recognize parts and be like, wow, like I've experienced something like that, or I've felt like what he might be feeling. And it's
mhm,
just so interesting. And it's like there's different it's like a I don't know, it's almost paradoxical, but there's things you can recognize. Like that's something
mhm.
human.
Yeah. But like, I think that's a great example because in the Joker, even though it's never condoning the actions, it is still a very sympathetic portrayal of this character and what he goes through and what leads him down these choices, where it's not that movie is not saying, oh, what he's doing is 100% right and what he's doing is like moral and just, but it's saying these are the choices that led him here. This is what has happened to him that has led him down this path. So to
Yeah.
you, it's like, or like, okay, perfect, like flip flop, right? Wolf of Wall Street with the character of Jordan Belfort. He is not necessarily portrayed as like a sympathetic person, but you're with him every step of the way, to the point where like when he starts making these like awful decisions, it's like you kind of are in his mindset too, to where like you can see how somebody like this can fall so much, even though like he is like this business man who's in like this, you know, different world. He is still, you're still kind of following him through like a typical hero's journey, where like he's, you know, building up his business and he kind of puts you into his head about like, and you kind of get inspired by like his passion and stuff and his energy, to where you kind of get caught up, and almost makes you kind of reflect in yourself about like, shit, like this could happen to me too at some point if I'm not careful. But then on the flip side, you have something like American Psycho, where you are not supposed to relate to Patrick Bateman at all. He is portrayed as this like weirdo loser type who's very insecure, but it's a way where you could still get into his headspace, but in a much more, I would say, detached way almost. I remember Christian Bale talking about when he played Patrick Bateman that he said he, the reason that Mary Hartman, I believe is the director's name. Put that on the bottom if I got it wrong. But she said the reason that she loved Christian Bale's performance is because he got that Patrick Bateman is like not even really a character. He's more like a stereotype. So to
Interesting.
me, he gets like the comedic elements of that movie work so well, because I feel like people would try to get more into like the psychological, like, ooh, what was this person's childhood and, you know, all this stuff. And then Christian Bale was just like, this guy's a fucking dweeb. I got this.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's why I think he kills it in that movie.
this is very interesting because it's something I have to think about this, because I feel like the beauty of film is it sheds light on so many different aspects of being a human. And it's like, man, if I'm sure there's people out there who look at Voldemort and like, whoa, like there's something human there, or like even Thanos,
Hmm.
right? So that's kind of a corny example, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's something to think about, man. Like I'm wondering that are there characters where you're really not supposed to relate to them? But I like how you mentioned Wolf of Wall Street because another cool thing about film is um, another way that it creeps into our lives is anytime I drive past a Benihana, in my head I'm always saying Benny effing Hana.
Benny fucking Hannes.
Oh my God. Anytime I drive past it,
Hmm.
it's like, oh my God. My favorite Persian restaurant is right by a Benihana. So it's like, damn, Benihana,
Hmm.
It's another
Yeah.
interesting way that films like come into our lives. Um,
Hmm.
I was gonna say, Matthew, uh, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say but you didn't get a chance to, or something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Well, I guess two things. So one, the idea like if you're not supposed to relate to a character, that can also hurt a movie, right? Because there have been so many movies where there's a character that is introduced as a villain and like you hear their monologue or whatever and the movie paints them as like, oh, this guy's crazy, this guy's a fucking lunatic, and then people will watch the movie and be like, that's kind of fair, hold on, why aren't you you know what I mean? Like I remember
I'm thinking of Voldemort's human eyes because I remember specifically hearing like they purposely gave him human eyes so like
mhm.
people would be like even more afraid. I don't know, it might be a little bit of a side thing, but yeah, go ahead. That's just something I was
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
of.
I'm trying to think of like a specific example because like there was one that I was thinking of where and I'm not even talking about like in Black Panther, right? Killmonger, that is kind of the point of that character to where, he's making pretty valid points. And then he kind of has like what a lot of people would agree, not the best methods to do that. And there's, criticism and controversy with how like that debate is presented in that movie. Obviously I'm not like one to really delve into that. But then there's like other characters where they are presented as like these crazy lunatics, and then like what they're saying pretty much makes sense, but it's the way that they are portrayed in the film and like again the overall like perspective and message that the filmmaker is going for. You
I
know what I
actually
mean?
come to think of it, like I think I see a little bit more of your point. Like Patrick Bateman, I could maybe see certain aspects of a human being in him. But yeah, personally, I
Mm-hmm.
just could not relate to that sort of a entity.
Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, I think the movie is like wanting to like make sure like there really is like nothing relatable. I remember actually, I believe Christian Bale said he said he was influenced by Tom Cruise
I
when doing
hear
that
that, but I don't
performance.
know. I don't know about that, man. I don't know. But
Hmm.
yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, yeah. There is
Yeah.
something like, I definitely do respect what Tom Cruise does with like filmmaking and stuff. Like
Are
he
you a
definitely knows how to
fan? Because
like,
you kind of resemble him.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I mean, here's my thing with Tom Cruise, right? His Scientology weirdness and his ego, I think definitely like is fueled into projects, but the dude knows how to make a fucking movie. And he very much puts himself in like the perspective of like what an audience wants to see, you know? And in a way where I think it like is good because I feel like there's like a bad way to let's just give the audience what they want and you make this like pandering mess. But Tom Cruise is like, let's have some fucking cool shit in a movie and let's actually have it be real. And that's what people want to see. We want to have people come back to the theater, which is why I think it's very interesting how Top Gun made so much money last year. It was like number one movie of last year. And then Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning that came out this year is being considered like a box office bomb. Like it didn't make nearly the amount of money that the studio was wanting them to make, to the
And maybe it's
point
just one of those
where
things where it's just ahead of its time, man. Maybe it'll have its
Yeah,
resurrection later on. You never know.
yeah. Who knows? So I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
And I can't really quite give a good reason as to that. I mean, plenty of people can. I want to say that movie came out like a week or two before the whole Barbenheimer weekend. So perhaps people were saving their money for that. I don't know. It was like a lot of movies this summer bombed, which is crazy. Like the new Pixar movie didn't do super well. New Mission Impossible didn't do super well. The Flash is like one of the biggest box office bombs ever. Same
I
with the
think
new
there's
Marvel movie that came out.
there might be something going on in the culture and
Yeah,
storytelling, and
exactly. The new
you never
the new
know.
Indiana Jones movie bombing. That was like,
Oh, I love that film. That's probably like the best
mhm.
Indiana Jones. I'm gonna be real. I love that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I haven't
Unfortunately, I
seen
think
it.
yeah, we're running kind of low on time. But yeah, man, like
Mhm.
I'm an Indiana Jones fan, you know, and that movie, it was an amazing homage. So I loved it.
All right,
But
cool, cool.
dude, this I could see this going on for a while. But this was fun,
Yeah,
man.
sure,
Thank you
man.
for being here.
Of
One
course.
thing
Th-
one thing I wanted to close on was something from Nightcrawler. Jake
mhm.
Gyllenhaal's character, he's got this thing. He's like, "Do you know what fear stands for? False evidence against reality." So to the listeners
Yes.
out there, that's what fear is. False evidence against reality.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's a guy who you want to get your life advice from. The Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Nightcrawler is great, by the way. I really love that
yeah,
movie a lot.
that's a cool one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on, man. Seriously, this was super fun.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose until next time, man.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Adios, dude.